The Guardian ran a piece a few months ago about cycling deaths on the roads in the UK. Okay? What's the title of the piece? Why roads designed by men are killing women. Seriously. It's like, you've got to bring the sexist war into cycling deaths. Piece in the New York Times, November 2017, by a black contributor to the New York Times, who writes a piece with the headline, "Should I allow my children to play with white children?" I'll give you, a few weeks ago in the BBC, front page website, is a story by a young girl who's black, mixed race, who's been offered a place at Cambridge, and the piece is, "I've been offered a place at Cambridge, but I don't know if I should accept it because I'm black." And you go, why the hell wouldn't you? Has Cambridge become some racist hellhole since I last went there? Has it become... my point is, this stuff, which is everywhere now in our culture, the weaponization of women against men, of men against women, of gays against heterosexuals, of heterosexuals against gays, of trans against everyone, and the endless idea that our lives should be used best by being on social media and finding a person who's just objected to something that was agreed upon until kind of yesterday, but didn't read that morning's bulletin and got it wrong, and then can get their life torn asunder. But that's a good use of our time. That's a good use of our time. Now, again, a lot of people think that at the moment. A lot of people think, they will hopefully learn that this is a horrible, horrible way to live, and that when they're on their deathbeds, they will not look back with great pride at their lives and think of the Twitter storms they were part of. Almost certain that that will not be something which they look back on as something of meaning. But my point is that it's something to do. And I think I said last time we met, I've been fascinated for a long time by this thing that our society has been for a while now, maybe one of the first societies in human history, to have no overriding explanation for what we're meant to be doing here. And a lot of young people I know have this. It's like, maybe at some point somebody's going to stand across my life and explain what it's all about. Now, everyone has had some of that at some point. We've all at some point in our lives felt that. Somebody at some point will stand beside my life and tell me, "Douglas, the point is X." And I'll go, "Oh, thank goodness for that." So we all have, my point is not the urge to have that happen. It's not the question, it's not that. It's the fact that there's no answer. That there's not even an attempt to provide an answer. Which means, as I say, that's why when Yaron mentioned with Islam, that's why I have the worry about Islam, because Islam has a very strong answer. Totally comprehensive answer to everything, from what you should do with a garment if you've peed on it, literally, in the hadith, to the meaning of everything. That's for a lot of people, that's very good stuff to have. You've got the book of meaning. And I think that one of the great challenges that our societies have is to find a way to address that impulse. And all I know in the time being is to also steer people away from this politicization of everything, because it is driving people mad. It's going to drive them a lot madder, and we've got to find a way out of it. Because that, and the identity politics, is what is so dangerous about it, is this fact that you can see that when one group plays it, another group can play it back, and there's no reason not to. And you see the beginnings of that.
But can that sense of a shared purpose be produced without an enemy? I mean, can you have the London Blitz spirit without the Blitz? I mean, can you compete with something which is...
I think it depends on what you mean by shared purpose. I mean, so first I think every human being needs purpose and meaning. And this is what attracts them to some of these easy ways out. So the religion, particularly Islam, because Islam is so comprehensive. Ultra-Orthodox Judaism does exactly the same thing. tells you what you do when you wake up, what you do every minute of the day, and how you do it, and it solves all your problems. You never have to think for yourself again, and it gives you purpose in life. As secular cultures, we have to develop a language about purpose and meaning that doesn't depend on these ancient rituals, that doesn't depend on faith and religion. And you can see the desire for this in the success of Jordan Peterson. I mean, Jordan Peterson's massive. I don't know any public intellectual who's bigger right now than him, and he fills stadiums, and thousands of people go see him. Why are they going to see him? Because I think he gives them some sense of meaning, purpose, and he does it in the realm primarily of psychology and half the time. I don't know what he's saying, but people get something very meaningful from what he is saying. They get a sense of they need to find meaning. They need to go out there and search for meaning. And it's not going to be easy like it is with these religions. So I think it depends on what it means by shared purpose. I don't know that the shared is necessary. I think what people really want is purpose. I think the shared is a lazy default. So I don't have to think about what I should do. I just have to look at what all white men do, right? And follow the great white male leader who tells me what to do. Right? This is the lazy default of unthinking people. And this is where we could learn a little bit from the Greeks, or learn a little bit from our own history. We don't teach anymore what it means to live a good life. It returns back to the idea of Twitter. We don't teach how to seek out meaning and purpose, because everybody has to find it. And we're afraid of that. It's again, our values are no better than anybody else's values. So great art, you can't talk about great art because all art is the same. Once you put a urinal in a museum, there is no meaning to art. It's gone, everything's equalized, and all meaning is lost. We have brought about egalitarianism to every dimension. No, some stuff is good and some stuff is crap. Some stuff is art, some stuff is just not art. It's a urinal. And until we're willing to say that and differentiate and explain why and teach our kids to appreciate what it is, and then to tell them you have to go out and find your purpose in life, and it's not going to be exactly the same, it's not going to be shared, it's going to be you, and here's some tools on how to do it. 12 rules for living or whatever, right? But here's some tools to do it. But the purpose of your life should be to live a good life. What that means for you is not exactly the same as what it means, but the tools are fundamentally the same, and we're going to teach you those tools. And here are some virtues and values that are universal, that apply to all of you in your quest for a purpose and a meaning in life. And so I think, again, this is part of Western civilization that we've defaulted on. We used to teach some of this. We used to teach our kids in a more classic education some of these tools and some of these ideas and some of these principles. And we don't anymore. We leave them out there to float. We leave them out there to, everything is instant gratification. Everything is about right now. No one value is better than another. Everything is the same. And they land up on Twitter. Right? They land up in Twitter storms. They land up not capable of thinking. To me, that's what it's, at the end of the day, what it's really about, is we don't teach critical thinking. We don't teach kids how to really think. And then we don't teach them how to differentiate and how to discriminate. You can't even, discrimination's bad, right? How to judge, right? How about, I get this a lot from young students. Oh, you can't judge. You can't judge other people. You're not supposed to judge. Well, how do you live if you don't judge? It's all about judging. What's good for me, what's bad for me, who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, who's evil, who's right, who's wrong. Those are important things that you have to think about, talk about, discuss, and really think about. And no, we're not supposed to do that. And as a consequence, we can't even bring up bad ideas because, good for those people. You look so eager.
Mainly to say how much I agree. But one thing is deconstruction. deconstructing things is the modern idea of terror. It's what students are told at university, what they were in my time as well. It's like, we've got to deconstruct things. This is such a game. It is such a game. Deconstructing words, deconstructing sounds. How does this sound to a person of this background as opposed to how it sounds to someone? Probably sounds the same. But I mean, if you wanted to define recent decades, certainly in thought, it would be the decades of deconstruction. And so, if we've done that game enough, and I would suggest we have done it more than enough, the question is, how do we start constructing again? What should we construct in our lives and as a society? If we've pulled everything apart, have we got any ability, among other things, to put back together again? Or are we like children with bicycles who can take them apart but have to call on an adult to put it back together? Is it that much fun to keep pulling everything apart without engaging in its opposite as well? Now, one way, by the way, when you were saying this about the need to judge, and I couldn't agree more. We need to find ways in which to do it or to present it in the light, among other things, that is desirable. The reason why the judging thing happens is because, as Jonathan Haidt and his colleague wrote in their recent book, we have all started to imbibe an element of catastrophism that means that a criticism of a person immediately means you're not just criticizing that person, you're denying that person, you're killing that person, you want to commit genocide against that person and everyone like them.
Yeah.
Often there's a slightly softer version of that, which is you're making people like that kill themselves. This is the means of blackmail that a whole set of ideas are being pushed forward on at the moment. So the catastrophism makes judgment impossible. But there are ways. I mean, here's one. I had a great friend who died some years ago, a publisher called George Weidenfeld, who actually fled Vienna in the 30s. And he had spent his whole life in publishing, published Nabokov, Graham Greene, everyone. And I once said to him at the very end of his life, what he thought had changed most in culture at his time. He has such an interesting answer. He said, I thought about it a bit, he said, the thing that is most interesting that has changed is, he said, when I was, growing up and throughout his life, he said, there was always this thing of highbrow, lowbrow, middlebrow. Now, some of you will remember this. It was, in a way, it was a game of its own. There was highbrow culture. There was is X, like is Graham Greene slipping from highbrow to middlebrow?
Yeah.
It's a sort of game that you can fill endless book pages with, this sort of stuff. But there was something good built into it, wasn't there? Which was that it discriminated between the better, the best, the kind of fine and the slightly shameful. I read a really lowbrow novel the other day. But we all know that the thing is we have no categories for this anymore. And it was in itself, as I say, a sort of slightly irritating set of categories. But we all know exactly that sort of thing. We all know that there are books that we read because we think at some level they're improving. And that there are books that we know that we won't get any improvement from, but they're fine. And that's the same with films and with all sorts of things. So we do have some kind of recognition still. It's just we don't know what the rules are. And that, as you say, is because nobody's taught even the basics. And this is but by the way, I'm not actually, if I just quickly say, I'm not pessimistic about that for one reason in particular, which is that one of the most important figures in my life is T.S. Eliot, and I learned from reading Eliot something so important, which is that you can revive a culture even after midnight. Let me give you a very practical example of this. Eliot makes a lot of references to Dante, and by my generation, most school children, certainly in England, would not read Dante at school. But we would read a bit of Eliot, and by the time you leave school, you would have heard of Dante because of Eliot. My point is that the one person who goes back and brings back the dead provides them anew to the living. And this is an astonishing thing, which Eliot demonstrated, but it is demonstrated at a lesser level all the time. And what I suppose I want most of that is to say, not to put people off by saying you have to know the entire canon before you can even start to contribute or anything like that, because almost nobody does. In fact, nobody ever did. But the point is to say this is something really worth being a part of.
Excellent.